everyone, welcome. I'm Robert, and today I want to discuss Pathfinder Adventure card game. This is the 2019 revision of the Pathfinder Adventure card game system, and this was my introduction to this franchise. I've had this in my shelf of shame for a couple of years. I got a open copy with the Crimson Throne expansion thrown in, and I've had this on my table for almost a month. I've been playing it on and off, and I've really been enjoying it. And I just want to share my thoughts on this. So this is a RPG in the form. It's a card-driven RPG where your character is your deck. And it does a lot of very interesting things with it does a lot of very interesting things with just cards. Lots of RPGs tend to have tons of other, board game RPGs tend to have tons of other components. They have a deluge of components like doors, tokens of all kinds. And this one just really tries to do as much as possible just with cards and dice, okay? So very interesting what it does with that. So in this game, it is a campaign-driven game. So you're going to go through adventures, and adventures are... your campaigns are divided in adventures. So the last adventure that I played was the scenario 2B from adventure number 2. So each adventure is divided in multiple scenarios, basically. And in this one, the party had to participate in an auction where you had to gain as many items as possible. And if you didn't win enough items in the auction at the end, you lost the scenario. And of course, there's some other obstacles thrown in there in the meantime. But yeah, that's the last adventure I played. So I've had a lot of fun with this from playing those few initial adventures. So in this game, your character is the deck, and the game just does so much with the limitation of just using cards. I've never seen a game do so many things with just a card. So in this game, you can play cards in front of you. You can, for the various effects, you can reveal cards. You can put cards in front, on top of your deck, at the bottom of your deck. Of course, Magic does this thing. A lot of these things, with 20 years design, 20 plus years design history, but as far as board games, card-driven board games that I've played, like deck builders, they don't tend to do that many things with cards. It's just you play a card and then it goes to your discard pile. That's it. But in this game, because of the limitation of trying to keep it as a card-driven game, they really went and did all of these things, all of these possible things that you can do with cards. So, play them in front of you, reveal them, discard them. And in this game, your character dies when you run out of cards in your hand and deck, okay? So your deck acts as your health, which is very interesting. And when you heal, you shuffle cards from your discard pile into your deck. So I really like that. And the game is very creative with the way in which it represents certain things in card form. Like, for example, armor. In this game, armor, so you put it in front of you, and then when you would take damage, you either discard it or you can prevent a bit of extra damage by burying it under your character. So when you heal, you don't ever get to see it again, okay? Weapons, typically you reveal them, or you can discard them or recharge them, which is putting them on top in order to get better effects. So for example, this weapon right here from my Scylla Paladin. So you can, for combat checks, you reveal them or put them on top or bottom of your deck in order to get increased attacks. So everything here revolves around rolling. So you're going to be rolling dice constantly, which is something that some people complain about. They just don't. People sometimes people are allergic to rolling dice all the time. So if you don't like rolling dice, stay away from this game. You're going to be doing checks constantly, and you're going to be managing your checking your characters and see how they can contribute to those checks. The more dice you roll, the better, obviously. And you have to, there is there is a ticking clock element on scenarios here. You can't just sit around and do checks forever. You have to try to move along. Scenarios are revolved around locations. In this scenario, there's only one location, but you're typically going to have various locations where you move your characters around, you split them. When your characters are in the same location, they can contribute to each other's checks. When you separate them, that can be a bit more complicated. But for example, the ranged character here, really cool, because you have a ranged weapon. This guy can contribute his crossbow attack to a character in another location. You couldn't say the same thing about a melee weapon, for example. So really cool ways in which they have represented thematic things like that within these constraints. Okay, so a ranged weapon can contribute to a check on another location. Really cool little things like that. You're gonna move between different locations, and they're gonna have a pile of cards, and they can be either banes or boons. So basically, good things or bad things. And you're gonna be for banes, you're gonna be facing obstacles or barriers, basically, and enemies. And then for boons, it's just items that you find, and you can do checks in order to acquire them. And growing your deck is throughout the game is something that you want to aim for sure. You want to because it's like a pseudo form of healing. Just by gaining items as you explore the map, it grows your deck temporarily, basically. So that helps you preserve your deck thickness. Okay, I just like how all of that connects. Okay, there's also this cool thing with blessings. So this blessings deck acts as your timer. Okay, so each turn a character flips one of these, and blessings can have an effect that takes place that turn that will affect your checks, or some blessings just don't. Okay. But some decks can also have blessings in them. Okay, and blessings just let you roll extra dice or explore. All right, exploring is when you flip the top card of a location. Okay, so that you can go through your location and close it. Now in this scenario, you didn't have to defeat a villain. Okay, but most scenarios are driven by the fact that you have to defeat a villain card. Okay. This is not a villain, but let's just pretend it is. So you have to find the villain, and the villain will move between locations, and you have to defeat it. Okay, you have to. If there's too many locations, the villain just kind of scurries away and moves between locations. So you have to try to corner it, basically. This scenario was pretty different from the previous ones I played, where it wasn't centered around a villain. All right. But one thing I really like about this game also is the progression. The progression is really cool. So you have your character cards, and then you're gonna gain hero points so that you can improve your character. So you can add more cards of a certain type. So there's a deck construction element that I really like here. There's tons of cards. So this left side here. This is just the core set. Okay, and there's tons of cards there for you to tinker with how you can build a deck for your character before you start an adventure. So you can improve your character by adding more types of, increasing the capabilities of what types of cards you can add to your character. There's other things like increasing their hand size, and each character class has their unique ability. And later on, as you gain more levels, you're gonna be able to pick a tree, a skill tree, basically. So for the ranger, we got, let's see, where's this? There it is. So you can pick a warden, for example, for the ranger here, or a dragon hunter, and then you keep yes, it's basically like a skill tree. Okay. All right. So now, one of the most interesting things, I'm not gonna say it's like a good or bad thing with this game, is the rulebook. Okay, this rulebook took me over a week in order for me to go through it, just with my free time. It's not a game that you're going to be able to sit down in an hour and learn it, especially if you're completely new to the system. So, for example, here, so this book is one of the densest because I tend to comment about a lot. I tend to comment a lot on rule books in my channel, and this is, on the spectrum of rule books. Typically, what I find is you have exceptional rule books where you don't have to ever check Board Game Geek, and they're elegant and well organized. Now this, and on the other end, you have poorly thought out rule books, poorly organized. Where you keep having to check in and you can't find anything, or they don't have any answers at all, and you have to go to Board Game Geek. Now this rulebook is very interesting because it's like in a category of its own, where it goes into detail on a almost like subatomic quantum molecular level of specificity. Okay, I have never encountered a rulebook like this. Each page is almost like a mini rulebook in of itself. There's so much that it specifies. Okay, and the thing is, the turn structure and the flow of the game is very it's very intuitive and kind of simple, really. But you would not get that impression, like if you saw people playing the game. Okay, so you reveal or discard cards and you roll dice and you do checks. Simple, right? But no, there's just so much here that the rule book specifies. Okay, and I just had such a tough time. It's not because the rule book is poorly written per se. It's just so specific that almost every sentence sounds like something that I have to make sure I don't miss. Okay. And yeah, this rulebook is like on a category of its own. So I have a schizo theory. Okay, maybe the people that made the approach, the mentality behind this rulebook, maybe the folks that made it, they had some douche like rules lawyer at some point in their lives, and they were like, you know what? That guy, I don't want to ever have to deal with a rules lawyer. I'm gonna be as specific as possible so that there's absolutely zero ambiguity. And I do respect that for sure. Okay, I'll take this over a rule book like the Skyrim rule book, where you don't have any, you don't have, and you start playing, and as soon as you start playing, all of these questions come up and you don't know where the answers are. I did not run into that with this at all. Okay, this rulebook is just, it's so specific that if you pay attention and you remember where things are, you're gonna find answers here. Now, unfortunately, there is a bit of errata that I found while browsing Board Game Geek about this title that you should be aware of, and also some easily missed rules. There's also a quick start guide that's pretty useful, and actually I didn't actually read this until I had gone through the rulebook at least once. I didn't even realize this came in the box. This is a bad habit of mine. I tend to download the rulebook and start reading it before I fully check the components, as happened to me a couple times. And the quick start guide's pretty good. But yeah, there's just a lot that this covers. Okay, I have heard some people complain about some of the changes from the previous edition to this. As a newcomer, completely, and this being the introduction, I'm completely fine with it as far as how the game flows and the rules. I don't have a framework to compare it to the old one. Never played the old version. So I have heard some mixed feelings about the old version, the old rule set versus this one. Even on the design and component quality, if you sleeve the game, you'll be fine. I think this should be sleeved for sure. And I would use clear sleeves. Don't try to use different color sleeves for stuff. I actually had a bit of a hard time figuring out how to sleeve this game. I would have liked to use premium sleeves for my characters, but then character cards tend to go inside of the location deck, so it's just best if you either don't sleeve it at all or sleeve everything with the same thing. Just a little bit of advice there, okay? But yeah, so one complaint that people had was with the design of the cards, like the graphic design, and I'll say that the text is very tiny. Okay, that's my one gripe with this. I don't mind. My eyes still work fine, but yeah, I can see how some people could complain about the text being very small. Okay, and I also suggest for improving your experience, you do have to bring in additional dice. Okay, the game does bring this set of dice. Okay, in my copy came with blue dice. I don't know if it varies per manufacturing wave, but yeah, someone suggested bringing 3 additional sets of dice. I ended up having 5 in total. Okay, but yeah, with this many dice, I have not had an issue so far with when having to roll a bunch of dice of different types. This was enough with 3. Okay, but yeah, you definitely just having that the dice that the game come with, having to re-roll the same type of die over and over, that's annoying. So this is almost mandatory. You should get you either use an app for rolling dice or bring in a few extra sets of dice. Okay, now on the subject of setting up and controlling multiple characters, so I've heard that people can't beat this game just controlling one, like can't go through campaigns just with 1 or 2 characters. But I really think that as I've played the game, I've noticed how having certain skills being really low, like having a character that lacks a certain skill, like diplomacy or craft or arcane, like your party lacking certain keywords in order to do certain checks can be really painful. So I think a sweet spot is 3 characters. Now, initially, it might feel like a bit of upkeep, okay, because you're grasping the abilities of your characters, but I got used to it after a couple games. On your first couple games, you're gonna forget that your characters have certain abilities, okay? That's fine. The first couple adventures that you play in a campaign, at least in the one included in the core box, is not that difficult, so it's okay if you forget. But as you play the game more with your party of characters, you're gonna familiarize yourself with their abilities and you're gonna remember more often. Okay, and I would not play this with 1 character for sure, maybe 2, just like when testing the game for the first time. But I think 3 characters is a pretty sweet spot, and you can delegate certain abilities to characters. Okay, now one thing here is the setup as well. Some people find the setup tedious. Surprisingly, I do find the setup here actually like zen. Okay, like I said, this has been in my table for over a month. It has not left my table. I've kept playing it on and off, okay, between other games, but I've played this a ton. I would just sit down, and the first few weeks it was kind of crazy how like I did not want to get up from the table. It like I was like magnetized to this. Okay, once I sat down, it's like I just lost track of time playing this, because between the setup, like setting up scenarios, I just found it once you learn the sequence of setting up scenarios, improving your character deck and putting everything back where it goes, it's kind of almost meditative. Okay, I did not mind at all, but yeah, setup definitely. This is not a quick to set up game. I would say it's not a long to set up game once you know what you're doing, but I found it almost relaxing how this game sets up. Okay, and in the setup, the aspect of setup that I enjoy a lot too is the deck construction aspect. There's an interesting deck construction aspect here where there's some suggestions with how you should build each character that the game tells you, but later as you learn it, I liked going through the different cards and seeing how I could customize each character. I really like that. And one other thing that I really like about this is just the card play is just very satisfying. It just hits like all the right spots with going through the different abilities, trying to optimize my hand as my plays as much as possible without letting my characters run out of cards. Okay, paying attention to the abilities on the locations. And how I could get as many dice rolled as possible. The game can be tough if you are trying to be conservative with rolling dice. I don't try to be conservative. I try to roll as many dice as possible, which will burn to your deck and your abilities quicker. Okay, but when you do get screwed by, there will be those times where you roll a bunch of dice. Okay. And even then, you're gonna fail the roll pretty miserably, okay? And but when you do, and there, conversely, there will be those times where either you don't really have the option of using abilities because you used up all of your abilities, or you're in a position where you can only roll one die and you still nail it, and that feels great. Okay, you still land the check and you pass the check. So the dice can be a bit of a roller coaster here, but I like rolling as many as optimally possible so that I guarantee my checks pass. Okay. I have heard some people describe this game as a dream solo game, and you know what? I kind of agree. I've barely scratched the surface with just a few. I think this is my fifth adventure. I've barely scratched the surface of what how much content I can go through with this game. There's so many characters for different party configurations. What items you're gonna find in each campaign playthrough is not gonna be the same. There's the Crimson Throne expansion, which has another adventure path. There's downloadable adventure paths. There's fan-made adventure paths, and at the end of the core set adventure path, there is a scenario generator, which I haven't even gotten to yet. I'm excited to see what that'll look like. But this is this definitely is a special game. But it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. For sure, because some people just hate rolling dice, and just some people will see it as play card, roll die, move on. Like, I understand how that could be repetitive, but I just really like it. I just really like it. I don't know what else how else to describe it. It's just relaxing almost. The flow of the game, the setup. I'm speaking of the story. Some people care about the story in some of these RPG style games. I don't care about the story. I mean, I read some of it. It did not really captivate me at all. Okay, so if you're playing a game for the narrative elements, I would not pick this up for the narrative elements. I just enjoy the gameplay loop. The illustrations are gorgeous too. Okay, and it really has. If you squinted from a distance and you looked at this, like you would think that it's like a D&D game almost. So it really, I know that Pathfinder is like a competitor to D&D, or it's in that same field, like an alternative to D&D. So it really nails that fantasy look that is very reminiscent of D&D. Okay, and it just really ticks that D&D box in card form, and I just love card-driven games in general. So I just adore this game. The only not negative per se I have, but like thing that I was a bit mixed in is the experience of learning it. For someone completely new to this system, the learning experience with the rulebook, again, each page of that rulebook felt like a rulebook in of itself. So the first time you learn it is gonna be tough, but once you overcome that, the gameplay just flows. It's simple, right? Relatively simple. Okay, intuitive stuff will just click, and I feel that it's like a difficult to forget type of game, like how it plays. At least the basic gameplay loop. Like if you come back to after a couple of years, you might have to remember what certain keywords mean or something like that. Which, by the way, speaking of stuff, good things that rulebooks do. This rulebook has a great glossary, okay, and it tells you which page to go to for it, okay. I know that's what glossaries do, but it gives you like a summary. It gives you a summary of what each keyword does, and then it tells you which page to go to. So it's just excellent in that sense, okay. You're gonna be hard pressed to not find an answer to a question in the rulebook, okay? Unless we're speaking about errata, which there seems to be some in some scenario. I read about that. I haven't run into it myself, but it looks like there's some errata that you need to be aware of, okay? But yeah, so this is like a dream solo game. Like this could be on my table for indefinitely, seriously. Like just the ongoing element of the campaign, I can just come back, sit down, and just keep going through the campaign, and I can just restart it with new characters, and it's not like a quick to play game. Like it takes like an hour to couple hours, so I can take my sweet time going through the scenarios. And if it wasn't for limited shelf or table space, at some point I might have to put this back in the box. But right now I just love having this set up somewhere in my room. And also notice this, look at, for everything that I've described, like this RPG, like adventure card driven experience, all of that in this relatively small table space. Okay, look at, I just love how much this game does just with cards, little adventure book, and just this little amount of space. Okay, and just some dice. I just love what this game pulls off with that. Okay, so definitely one of the best solo gaming experiences I've had, and I keep enjoying it, and I will keep enjoying it until, for whatever reason, I might have to shelve it. But all the work that I did learning it paid off. Love this game. I'm glad I didn't sleep on it for longer, okay, because it sat on my shelf gathering dust forever. But just adore this game. Also sad that they, I was reading about how this game got, got canned. There's no more content coming, but that's unfortunate. But there's tons already available currently. It'll keep you occupied for a while. But it is unfortunate that there's no more content in the foreseeable future for this. Okay, but yeah, folks, that's the Pathfinder Adventure card game core set, the 2019 revision. And if you have any comments, questions, feedback, go ahead and put them in the comment section. If you enjoyed this content, make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.